On paper, that is racing. Emotionally, it is much heavier. Because when the same teammate keeps benefiting from the moments that hurt you, frustration begins to connect everything. China becomes part of Japan. Japan becomes part of Miami. Miami becomes part of Canada. The driver starts to feel that he is not simply fighting another Mercedes. He is fighting the direction of the entire season. That is why Russell's later words mattered so much. He said it felt like the gods did not want him in the fight when he looked at the timing of the safety car in Japan. That sentence was not just disappointment. It was a window into his mindset. He was beginning to feel that the title was slipping away through a mix of speed, timing, and events he could not control. Meanwhile, Antonelli kept taking more of the story. Every win made the rookie label weaker. Every strong weekend made his claim stronger. Every time he beat Russell, Mercedes' original hierarchy looked less believable. And then Miami made the issue impossible to reduce to luck. Antonelli won again. Russell finished fourth. This time, the difference was not just about race timing. The deeper analysis pointed toward driving style, especially tire behavior. Antonelli seemed able to manage the rear tires more gently during demanding laps, keeping them in the right operating range for longer. That sounds technical, but it is simple. Imagine running on hot pavement in shoes that can overheat. If you stomp too hard, the soles start to slide. If your steps are smoother, you keep grip for longer. That is what tire management can feel like in a Formula One car. Antonelli's touch seemed to fit the W17 more naturally. Russell was fighting the balance. And that is a massive problem for a driver who believed this was his title car. Because a fast car is only truly fast when the driver trusts it. If the rear does not feel stable, the driver hesitates. If the front does not respond the way he expects, he cannot attack the corner. If the tires fall away too quickly, he has to protect the car instead of using it. Russell said the car was not giving him what he needed, and when there is no confidence, a driver cannot attack. That was not just a complaint. It was the beginning of a deeper question. Was the fastest car on the grid naturally becoming an Antonelli car? Not because Mercedes wanted it that way. Not because anyone planned it. But because his style worked better with what the car demanded. That is where internal tension becomes dangerous. Because once one driver feels the machine is rewarding the other, every choice starts to look loaded. A setup direction is no longer just technical. It becomes personal. A tire decision is no longer just strategic. It becomes political. A development choice is no longer just progress. It becomes evidence. Who is the team listening to? Who is the car evolving around? Who is becoming the real center of Mercedes? That question was hanging over the team before Canada even began. And then the drivers started speaking like men on opposite sides of the same truth. Russell admitted he had expected to be the main protagonist, and that had not happened. That line was huge because it was not an attack. It was more revealing than an attack. He was saying the role he thought belonged to him had been taken in real time. Antonelli answered with the coldest weapon available. The championship table. He said he was the championship leader, and that said everything about the current situation. No insult. No need for drama. Just the facts. And that is what makes Antonelli so dangerous for Russell. He does not need to shout to hurt him. The points already do it. By the time they reached turn 1 in the Canada sprint, the clash was no longer just about a corner. It was about everything that had happened before it. Russell defended like a driver trying to prove he would not be pushed aside. Antonelli reacted like a driver who believed the championship leader deserved more respect from his own teammate. Then the radio exploded. Antonelli said Russell had closed him off. He said he had been pushed wide. He wanted a penalty. He said it could not be tolerated. But the most important line was the simplest. He said Russell was his teammate. That word changed everything. Because a teammate is supposed to know the invisible limit. You can fight hard. You can defend. You can chase victory. But you do not put both cars in danger unless the team has accepted that risk. Antonelli's message suggested he believed Russell had crossed that internal line. Russell's position was different. The stewards had not investigated the move. That gave him a powerful defense. In racing terms, he could say he stayed within the rules. And that is exactly why Mercedes has a problem. A move can be legal and still damage trust. A driver can avoid a penalty and still make the other side of the garage believe he went too far. A clash can end without official punishment and still start an internal war. Then came the line that exposed the biggest detail of all. Antonelli referred to a meeting. That meant Mercedes had already spoken privately about how the two drivers should race each other. The team had already seen the temperature rising. The team had already tried to manage the boundary before Canada reached its breaking point. That is the real confirmation of the internal clash. Not a press release. Not a headline. A private meeting becoming part of the public conversation because one driver believed the other had ignored the spirit of it. From that moment, Mercedes could no longer say this was just normal racing tension. They had already tried to control it. And it still happened. Toto Wolff then had to step into the most delicate position in the sport. He had to cool Antonelli without making it look like Russell was completely innocent. He had to protect Russell without making Antonelli feel abandoned. He had to defend the idea of hard racing while also warning that the team could not allow extra risk. That balance is almost impossible. Wolff told Antonelli to focus on driving, not complaining over the radio. That was control. Then Mercedes warned both drivers they needed to compete without taking more risk. That was fear. And later, Wolff made the real issue clear. He asked whether the drivers should race each other like they are fighting a third car, or whether they should handle it differently because they are teammates. That question is the heart of the first block. Because once a team has to ask that question, the old trust is already damaged. If everything were calm, they would not need to define it. If the drivers understood each other, they would not need to debate it. If the hierarchy were stable, the team would not be walking into Monaco with so much uncertainty. And Wolff's warning that there may not always be complete freedom to fight between teammates is the line that changes the stakes. Because if freedom becomes limited, someone loses freedom first. Russell knows that. Antonelli knows that. And the 43-point gap makes the answer more uncomfortable. After Canada, Antonelli is not just ahead. He is 43 points ahead. That number does not mathematically end Russell's season, but it changes the way Mercedes must think. A small risk against Antonelli is no longer just a teammate battle. It is a risk against the championship leader. A Russell attack is no longer just a driver trying to win. It could become a threat to Mercedes' best title chance. That is where the tension becomes unavoidable. Mercedes can still say both drivers are equal, but the points are not equal. Mercedes can still say both drivers are free, but Wolff has already hinted that freedom has limits. Mercedes can still say everything is under control, but the meeting, the radios, and the warnings tell a different story. That is why Monaco is the worst possible next chapter. At most circuits, tension has space to breathe. A driver can run wide. A mistake can be recovered. A teammate battle can continue without immediate destruction. Monaco offers none of that. The walls are too close. The corners are too narrow. The first lap is too sensitive. Qualifying is too important. If Russell qualifies ahead, Mercedes may find itself trapped. Asking him to move aside would make the team's priorities obvious. Letting him race freely could put Antonelli's championship lead at risk. If Antonelli qualifies ahead, Russell faces the question that could define his season. Does he accept the role Mercedes may need him to play? Or does he attack like the driver who said he has nothing to lose? This is the first major reason the internal clash is so dangerous before Monaco. The problem is not just that Russell and Antonelli touched in Canada. The problem is that the touch happened after weeks of pressure, after a private meeting, after a changing championship hierarchy, and before the one race where even a small mistake can become a season-defining disaster. Mercedes has speed. That is not in doubt. But speed does not solve distrust. Speed does not stop a radio message. Speed does not rebuild a hierarchy that changed faster than anyone expected. And speed does not protect a team from two drivers who both believe they have earned the right to lead. Russell believes this was supposed to be his Mercedes era. Antonelli has the results that say the era may already belong to him. And that is why the first block of this story ends with the question Mercedes cannot escape. Before Monaco, is this still a battle between teammates? Or has the fastest team in Formula One already become divided between the driver who expected control and the driver who took it?